Hello, hello, and welcome everyone. We are ready for our next interview, and I'm excited today because we are going to be talking about jerky. We're going to be talking about how to sell plant based jerky in Texas. Yes, it's possible, and our guest today is going to tell us the inspiration behind the business, the reason why. The business was created. And then also, when we think about creating these vegan and plant based businesses in some cities and some towns, sometimes we wonder what kind of feedback we'll get. And I'm really excited today to kind of pick my guest brain today to find out what that journey was like, what that experience was like, and what has been some of the aha moments, some of the successes, and also maybe some of the things that our guest learned along the way that he can share with others that may be following in his footsteps. So, first, let me just say welcome, Brett. It's so great to have you here today.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm glad to be here. Appreciate it.
Perfect. So before we dive into everything, let's just lay just get everyone grounded in the business. So the business is called All Y'all Foods, correct?
All y'all's foods, yes.
Yes. And maybe let's just give them a little bit of background on what kind of products, what do you sell? I know I said plant-based jerky, but when I was on your site, you think of like one option, but your site is full of variety. So do you want to just give them a little background on the business and then we'll dive
Sure.
and kind of jump in our time machine and talk about how you got started?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. We are All Y'all's Foods is a mission-driven plant-based proteins company. We're based in Texas. We launched in May of 2018. We offer a line of jerkies. Each flavor represents one of the seven regions of Texas. There's actually seven separate regions in Texas. So we came out with three so far: prickly pear, teriyaki, prickly pear chipotle, and my favorite, traditional black pepper sea salt. And we use prickly pear because it's a state plant of Texas. A portion from every bag sold goes to Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, which is the first cattle ranch turned vegan animal sanctuary in the state of Texas. They had the largest head of cattle or cows in 60 something when I reached out to Renee initially. So every time you sell a bag, there's a portion that's set aside for them that goes to them every quarter. And uh, and we use, when it comes to resources, we use 1/13 on average the land, fuel, and water to produce our proteins compared to animal-based proteins. And what's interesting our proteins versus beef has more protein, calcium, magnesium, and iron, no cholesterol, no saturated animal fat, and it's full of fiber and phytonutrients. So what's really cool is I know I'm nourishing the consumer, I'm not harming the animal, and I'm being kinder to the earth. And so that's what we're up to today.
And that's great because I think that's a dream for people when they start a business. Their goal is to ultimately create a business that can give back, create a business that can help their community, create a superior and oftentimes just a go to product. So it sounds like you are definitely in that sweet spot and in that lane. So maybe let's jump into a time machine. Let's rewind and say how you got started and how you found your way to where you are today, where you are able to, reduce waste, and be able to produce a superior product and save animals. Maybe let's go back
Yeah.
in time.
Let's go back about 12 years. I read two books, Medical Miracle and The 1 Minute Cure. And when I got done reading those books, I realized everything I had made up about health and nutrition and disease and cures and solutions and the whole thing was not accurate, wasn't true. Everything I'd been taught. And then I attended the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Right before then, I had dealt with depression for almost a decade. And that was due to mostly poor diet choices. I ate fast food, I ate processed foods, I ate meat and dairy. That's pretty much what I ate. And I put on a significant amount of weight. And I was told that our brains are over half fat. And if all we're ingesting is bad oils, well, our brain can't make up healthy oils to nourish itself. So it was suggested that I went with fresh ground flax seeds for the
Mhm.
omega 3s. And I did 2 tablespoons of those. And within 4 months, I was off all medication and I've been off, antidepressants since then. I was told not a medical professional. I was told it will eliminate, reverse, whatever term you want to use, bipolar disorder, depression, and ADD. And so I'll leave that there. And so that worked. And then I met a woman by the name of Deanna One. I was attending the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I was publishing a book called Nutritional Truths. She ended up being in it. And why is that? Well, she's a physicist and a colonel in the U.S. Air Force, and the only person I've ever met who is in hospice care who's alive. Mm-hmm. She was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer, given 4 weeks to live. 2 weeks in, the pain was so great, they're about to up her morphine. She knew that was essentially the end. And she remembered some stuff that her grandfather had taught her about some healing properties of different mushrooms. She's of Chinese descent. And so she took those along with a modified Gerson protocol. And it's 10 years, 12 years later, and she's showing women how to help themselves heal from disease. And so I realized, again, everything I had made up was not accurate. You have to understand that I grew up as a person hunting and fishing, and I ate lots of meat. Everything was meat-centric. And how could you eat? In fact, the first time I heard of Meatless Monday, I laughed out loud because I was like, I couldn't even think of a meatless snack. And I'm serious. I really couldn't think that. That's the way I was wired. And so on a trip to the zoo, in that book I had published, I talked about the elephant, the gorilla, and the rhino, and how you have a 10,000-pound animal that doesn't eat burgers and Chick-fil-A. It eats plants. Wait a minute, but they're so much different than we are. Nope, they're not. So on a trip to the zoo, saw the gorilla, saw the rhino, saw the elephants. In an instant, it hit me. All animals are present and aware, like my dog that I love and I protect with all my life. All animals are present and aware like she is, and they don't want to die. And we kill 100,000 every minute of every day to eat them when we don't need to. And so I stopped. That was over 7 years ago. And then I switched to vegan, shed over 100 pounds so far, and there's no turning back. After that happened, I learned that beef was our second largest export. That, again, I got angry, and I'm like, well, are you going to bitch about it, or are you going to change it? I'm like, I'm going to change it. And so that's where I started formulating. It took a year to formulate the flavors. And then they said, don't come out with 7, just pick 3 and start there. So we did.
Well, first off, we had a couple of people stop by that really loved your story. So I just want to say thanks so much, Chris. He said respect to you. Elsa came by and said, thank you so much for sharing a fantastic story. So it's definitely people are impacted by your story and impacted by what you've done about it. I think what I really loved about what you were saying is not only did you get the information, you started to apply it to your life. You know, you get the information, you started to write a book and share it. And then from there, you started to create a business. And I think that's the key for many of us out there, is that these stories should inspire us, but also inspire us to take action so that what we do in our days really aligns with our ethics, aligns with our passion. So when you came out with the 3 products, when you came out with the business, what was it like? Was it a big whirlwind? They were knocking on your door? Was it, okay, where is everyone? Or is it something in between? Because everyone's launch is a little bit different. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's imagine it's somewhere in between, because our launch ended up being, I'm a member of the Go Texan program. The Texas Department of Agriculture has a program to support those who have food businesses and other businesses, actually, to help their efforts when they're creating products and goods in Texas or that kind of thing. So they had an event that they were sponsoring, the Grapevine Main Street Festival. And it was a 3-day event. And they said, well, you can come and we'll give you a little kiosk and you can sample for free. It's 3 days. And I'm like, okay. So I rented one of those, forget the name of the vans, but put 3 pallets of product in there, went to the event, set up, didn't need it. But I didn't run out. And that's where we started. And at that event, my first retailer introduced themselves, or Raquel from Grapevine Farmers Market, or Farmers Market at Grapevine. I always get that mixed up. But they came and said, hey, we'd love to have you in the store. I mean, they have vegan soft serve and different products there amongst amazing produce. And we've been in there, and they've been one of our biggest customers ever since. And that's where it started. So it wasn't a huge fanfare. I didn't do events. I didn't do anything. I just started calling on, in this case, I called on vegan grocery stores across the U.S. and said, "Hey, do you want us?" They're like, "Yeah, are you a vegan company?" "Yeah, here we go." And so that's how that started.
I love that because, sometimes we think it's the event that's going to do it. And I love the fact that you went to the event, but then you found a different avenue to move forward. It's that thing where when you run a business, sometimes you have to be open to the options that might show up and reveal themselves to you, but you still
Mm-hmm.
have to take action. You know what I mean? You still have
Right.
to like show up at that event so that that
Yeah.
other option can materialize itself. So,
Yeah.
how much do you do in store versus online sales? I mean, are
Mm-hmm.
you more local and retail, or do you do
Yeah.
a lot online as well?
Yes. We do about 2/3 on retail and 1/3 online, which includes Amazon. We're our focus, and we're just beginning to expand it, but our focus has been inch wide, mile deep to get into Texas, begin working with one thing I didn't mention. HEB is a retailer here in Texas.
Mhm.
So this woman, Mrs. Butts, started it in 1906 with $60 in a prayer, they say, and today it's a 30-something billion dollar privately held company. But they're the largest and only Texas-owned grocer, and they have a contest every year, the Quest for Texas Best. So in 2019, I entered. I came in. I ended up being one of the 20 finalists, which means if you're one of the finalists, that means they want you in the store. And it didn't cost anything to enter. It's just you got to be in Texas.
Mhm.
And so I was one of the 20 finalists, which is the win because hey, and then we compete for money. And I did come in first, plant-based protein. Now, if I'm being honest, I was the only plant-based protein, but you know, um, I
I
came in.
still take that first
I'll
place
still take
ribbon.
that. But at least I'm honest about it. And so overall, I came in sixth, but 840 people had entered that year.
Wow.
So I took that as a positive. And so things like that kept happening because in the CPG space, you're selling retail, which means we sell through our website. We also sell on Amazon. And then there's a few other choice sites that we sell on, not to compete against us, but to finish out the mixes on their sites. And then we sell into distributors, both like the large ones, UNFI and KHE, as well as the smaller ones like Mabel and Fair that you find online. And then we do special events where we either meet retailers or consumers, and we sample and sell at those events as well.
Perfect. So if somebody's watching today, listening today, and they wanted to get some, what social media, website, where do we want to send them?
To our website, allyallsfoods.com. And within that, you can see the places from LA to New York City where you may be able to pick it up in person. If not, you can order through our website, as well as, like I said, on Amazon. And I would say that would be your best bet because no matter where you are, you can get it. You can get it either from us or Amazon, or it's even on Walmart. But
Wonderful.
that's only case packs.
Okay. It sounds like Chris, you might be in the UK, but Chris stopped by and said, glad places in the US are doing this. The UK is the same. So are you shipping to the UK? Just thought I'd ask since
No,
since Chris said
no,
something
no,
about the
not
UK. Not yet.
not
Okay.
yet. No, we're learning about doing business in Canada as well as in Asia because there's a
Okay.
lot of really good opportunities where people are wanting this.
Perfect. Now, I also want to go back to the idea of donating proceeds. For a lot of people, when they're running their businesses, we're always thinking about having a vegan business, but it's such an amazing thing when your business can fuel sanctuaries, when it can fuel
Hmm.
other kind of initiatives, activities, and overall activism in the vegan space. How did you come up with that idea? Had you heard someone else doing it? Were you just inspired by a story? What kind of got you on that path?
It just made sense that I should have someone that I work with, that our success will be their success, because they're actually kind of like boots on the ground kind of thinking, because if someone is at home doing their own thing and not bringing, leaving animals out of the equation, that's one thing. But when you can start impacting others, it's something more. And so it was pretty easy. Like I said, they had the most cows, and I was working. In the beginning, it was just about the jerky, and so that made the most sense. Plus, the neat thing about like Renee and Tommy, who started and run Rowdy Girl, aside from being very easy and great people, to spend time with or interact with, they also have a rancher advocacy program. And what that is look, there's a lot of people who want people like, hey, stop doing stop making money off of animals the way you do. Maybe there's another way of making that money. And so there are people who are getting into, whether they inherit it or whether they just decide for whatever reason, their own personal choices or their own convictions, what have you, to get out of the animal agriculture piece. They're like, well, how do I subsidize my income? So the Barrett Farm up in Arkansas is the first program where they've gone in and they were slaughtering, I forget, like 90,000 chickens every 58 days or something in these huge barns.
Yeah.
And they, for whatever reason, I think they went vegan. They said, well, this doesn't work. And so they stopped, but they're like, well, how do we make money? Well, they've converted one of the barns, at least half of it, maybe it's closer to full now, to grow exotic mushrooms and be able to truck those out to local cities, in Dallas, Oklahoma City, different places, Arkansas, Little Rock, different places that will use them, and then set up a completely different business that will pay them more than those thin margin contracts with those poultry producers ever do. Yeah. Because I've never talked with anyone in that business who's gone, this is so much fun, we have a really good time. It doesn't happen. It's a lot of work, and it's not very, from what I've been shared with me and what I've listened to, what I've read, it's not that people don't find a lot of satisfaction in doing that.
Yeah, and that's because the industry giants that they're working with are often squeezing.
Sure.
And it's not only great because we get to save the animals, but these individuals can, move their farms to other viable businesses. It's really exciting when we can show people that there's another path forward. I think that's one of the beautiful things about veganism is that it also creates paths forward. It creates other opportunities for people. And even in the example of with your jerky, it creates an opportunity to have a product out there that is highly competitive. So let's talk about that. You mentioned how much protein, how much, what race, I think that you said, that you were able to reduce, or maybe I heard it wrong. Maybe
1/13th land, fuel, and water. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Like, was that always the vision when you first started? Did you start making the product and then worked your way back to making sure that your product had that higher protein count, and also making sure it kind of, wasn't contributing to the problem as well?
Right. No, the neat thing is plants just lend themselves to more. In that, give you an example. The amount of time it takes to quantitatively grow, if you will, a couple pounds of beef on an acre of land, okay? At the same time, you could grow 350 pounds of soybeans. So you're talking about huge margins in our discrepancies between what makes sense and what doesn't, just from a numbers perspective. No other thoughts given to it, just a numbers perspective. So coming into it, what I didn't want to do was use soy isolates.
Okay.
Soy isolates are generated, they take soy and they split soy with hexane. Hexane is a byproduct of making gasoline. And if I'm not mistaken, it would poison you if you drank it. It would not be a good thing. But they're able to use it in food production, which just blows my mind. But the fact is compared to its meat counterpart, it's miles ahead of it. The thing is our base for our products are made from whole, non-GMO soybeans. And so you're getting the whole soybean. It's just crushed, cooked, extruded, dried, marinated, and baked. So there's, people talk about processed food. There's not a lot of processing to it. So it alone had the protein from the get-go and would work. And from a financial model, worked. So we landed on what we did for the base. And then we wanted bold flavors, and we wanted to use things close to Texas. So like the smoke we use in our black pepper sea salt is pecan smoke, because it's a state tree, is a pecan tree. And the weight of the bag, each bag is 2.69 ounces, and that's for that calf 269 over in Israel. I remember hearing that story about that they rescued from slaughter. And so there's all these different things, that tie into the company. But it was one of those things that once I read about beef and I was like, well, let's do something different. And it just I knew I was going to do it, and I just started doing it. And ever since then, I just keep doing it. Well, what's the next right thing? I can't really see around corners very well. So, they say, pray if it depends upon God, all on God, and do the work as if it depends all upon you. And so I just ask the universe for direction and do the next right thing. And sometimes that requires pivoting. In fact, I remember being interviewed one time. Was there a time this year you had to pivot? I'm like, this year? It's like this week, this month. I wouldn't say necessarily this day, but you have to be willing to get over being right and how you think things are and do what is best for the company.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the hardest parts about being an entrepreneur at times is you feel like, you put a business plan together, you go to all the seminars and, I decided I was going to do this and this is going to be the way it is. But the reality is you do have to stay nimble. And it doesn't mean you can. I'm not an advocate of doing it without a plan. I do think you want to have a general sense of where you want to be, so that you can get there. It's kind of like getting in the car without directions. You need a general sense of, am I going north or south or west?
Yes.
But being flexible enough because, sometimes, success just comes in so many interesting and different packages. And it's so important to be open to it, to be open to kind of, like you said, peeking around a corner that you didn't really plan to look around because something might be sitting right there for you that can help you grow and move forward. We had a question just popped in asking about the soybeans. So the soybeans that you use, are they organic? The question came in as my understanding that almost all soybeans are GMO, if not organic. Are soybeans free of herbicide, pesticides, and fungicides?
The crop is a no spray crop. And so it is certified as a no spray crop and non-GMO. So I would offer that a lot of times true, if it's not organic, you don't know what it is. In this case, we know what it is because we're not interested in selling GMOs. In fact, right now we're currently getting our gluten-free and non-GMO certification. We have our vegan certification from BVeg, which is the only ISO international vegan certification on the planet. So we will be getting the other ones, but great question.
Yeah. And I'm really glad to hear that you are using non-GMO soybeans, because I think that's the challenge these days is you want to put out a great product, but some crops have been so manipulated out there that it can sometimes feel hard to get to that point because the organic options sometimes have a higher price point on them, or there's a challenge in supply chain and getting them consistently. And I know a lot of business owners just struggle because their heart is in the right place, but sometimes just what's readily available to them doesn't always give them those options. So I'm glad that you've pushed that direction. And not only are you doing the non-GMO soybeans, but like you said, you're working on those additional certifications.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about running a business. Let's talk about some of the good days, the bad days, the okay days. I don't know if there's any stories or anything you want to share about, kind of what it's been like running a business, being kind of at the helm of a vegan business, especially and oftentimes feeling like you're in a non-vegan world, running this kind of business.
What are you
I should say
non-vegan
kind
world?
of.
What are you talking about? Really? Where are you from? I was in LA a month ago and I turned on the Happy Cow app and I went, because there was just like there was 100 and something places within 20 minutes of where I was. I was like, wow. Now I get
The
why
world is
people live
changing.
there.
Yeah, the world is changing. I went vegan back in 2005. So
Wow.
I
Oh,
was
wow.
still eating a lot of the
Wow.
dusty, oatmeal hamburgers, that were vegan burgers. And those were
Tofu
like,
and tempeh.
yeah, absolutely. And that was the only option. So life has definitely changed. But I don't know, do you feel like as a business owner that the world has changed when you're selling and promoting your product? Or do you feel like it's getting there a little at a time?
Absolutely. Well, and here's how I learned it. So we have a state fair here in Texas. It's the oldest and largest. And what was great was I do sampling in the first year in 19. And then I think it was the next year, 20, because people go, what is that? I said, well, it's a plant-based protein. They're like, what is that? And then a lot of people, and some people didn't even grasp it in the end. They still didn't, it doesn't make any sense, didn't register for them. Mm-hmm. But then because of Burger King coming out with the Impossible Whopper, everyone goes, oh, like the Impossible Whopper. I say, exactly. Yeah. And then I started telling people, like, meat is really just a vehicle for plants. You think about any sandwich you eat or any meal you eat, it's just a vehicle for the flavor of plants, smoke, char, and salt. Yeah. And so, and it produces the mouthfeel and the chew and the experience. So now we're just replicating that with plants. So you can have virtually the same experience, but leave the animals alone.
Yeah. I love that.
So I think things have changed and people are seeing it. I mean, 90% of all plant-based foods are eaten by people who still eat meat. 90%. Yeah. So it's happening. People are trying it. People are sampling things. And again, whether it's from a health perspective, a planet perspective, or compassionate for the animal perspective, more and more people are just going to keep coming to it. And what's great is no matter why they come to it, at least it impacts all three areas every time.
I love that. That's a perfect quote, because that's the key. If you can impact all three of those areas, and
if you impact one, you're impacting the other two.
Yeah. And that's a great reason for the bad days when you run a business, you know what I mean?
Sure.
For the difficult challenges.
Well, here's the thing. And I tell people, like, 100,000 animals every minute of every day are dying. 100,000, it's just mind numbing. And then it's like, if we killed ourselves off at the rate we kill animals, if humans did that, in 18 days, we'd be extinct.
Yeah.
Give people a perspective on the numbers that we're removing when plants are all we need.
Yeah. Oof. I hadn't even thought about that. The idea if we did it at the same rate, when we'd be extinct. So I hadn't heard it put anyway.
Do you remember that movie Office Space?
Yes.
Okay. Well, in the movie was Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangster. Well, I rewrote the song and shot it with some friends as Damn It Feels Good to Be a Vegan. And it's on YouTube. So people ask me what I'm most proud of. I'm like, kind of that. And not because I think it's all that. It's just because there's a message there that speaks more than I'll ever do.
We're definitely going to have to get that link and share it out. Plus, I just have to see it now. Yeah, definitely.
It's a fun song.
It is. So let's do this. Let's just give everyone website, social media handles again. Elsa had asked for it as well as a follow-up to her question. She said, great, just drop the contact information. Sure. Do you want to just walk everyone through it one more time?
Yeah, allyallsfoods.com, ALLYALLSFOODS. You can also find us Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. Also got a podcast on our website. I think that covers, and then rowdygirlsanctuary.org. You can find them there.
Perfect. And as we wrap up today's interview, I always love to leave things with a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of motivation. And I know for many of us, when it's tough out there, when things are happening, we could use some wisdom from other people.
Yes.
And since our guests are probably on different spectrums, there's some people who are just starting a business, some people who are running a business and maybe need a little bit of motivation, or even if someone's just struggling in their vegan journey, is there anything that you use to keep going, to keep positive, to stay focused that you'd love to share with our audience today?
Sure. And it's easy. It's going to be different for me than anyone else, but I got it real easy today. Compared to the animals and what they're enduring, I got nothing to complain about. A buddy of mine would say, you're living with your ass in ice cream. So in other words, there's always people who got it easier. There's always people who got it harder. Always been that way. The thing is we'll never have it as hard as the animals got it. And so when I run up against it, I'm like, dude, you're not doing it for you. Shut up. You got nothing to complain about. Keep going. So, I said, I've never worked this hard, but I've never been this happy. And in addition to this passion, I'm working under a conviction. I live convicted that I need to do more. Now, I can't spend my mind sitting in that and sitting in what really takes place all the time everywhere for all these animals, because I never get anything done. So I have to set that to the side, say, what's the next right thing, and do it, and just keep doing it. I got no complaints. Keep going. That's what I do.
That is wonderful. And thank you for keeping going. I mean, thank you just in general. As a consumer, it's so great to see more products on the market. Thank you so much. Just the support that you're giving to, Rowdy Girl, and also, just that idea of your success being others' success. And also just thank you because the work you're doing, like you said, is saving animals. That is so crucial, so important. And it's so wonderful to see the work you're doing, the business that you're running, even sharing your story. So thank you so much today. It's been great chit-chatting. It's been great learning more and more about yourself and the business. So thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me here. It's been wonderful. I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. So you guys heard it here. Make sure you jump online. Make sure if you are in Texas, check your local stores. And if they don't have it, demand it, ask for it so it can be in your stores. Because the key here is we want to make sure that we're spreading veganism, but spreading it in all ways, as well as supporting other entrepreneurs and businesses out here. So all y'all's food, make sure you check out the website, go to social media. And as always, thank you for everyone who joined us live. It's wonderful to see your comments, Tracy. Great to see it. You stopped by as well. It's great when we have questions. That's always wonderful. And if you're watching this as a replay, always pop in your questions because we will make sure we get them back to our guests and also any of our podcasters out there. I hope you enjoyed today's interview, and we will see everyone in our next. Take care, everyone. Bye.